Hey, it's story time. Yes, story time. And today's story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Are you excited about Christmas? I'm sure you are. Are you ready for the story? Well, let's find out how the Grinch stole Christmas. Ever who down in Whoville like Christmas a lot? Whoville, what a strange name for a place. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, didn't not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head was screwed on just right. Just wasn't screwed on just right. Nope, you don't think that's the reason? Okay. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. Oh, tight shoes will make you do all sorts of things. Maybe, just maybe, may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. How big is your heart? You have a big heart? You got a little tiny heart. 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, whatever the reason, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's of Whoville. Hating the Who's of Whoville. Yes, he stood there just looking and looking, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they laughed and they hung their stockings. He snarled with a sneer, "Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here." Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, "I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming to Whoville." For tomorrow he knew that Christmas would come. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush from their toys and then on the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he really hated. The noise, the noise, the noise, noise. He just really hated. Then the Who's, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and feast, and feast, and feast, and feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who's roast beef and Who's which sometimes something the Grinch just simply couldn't stand. At last, and then they do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They stand in hand and hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they'd sing, and they'd sing and sing and sing and sing and sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, "I must stop Christmas. I must stop this whole thing." Why? For 53 years I've put up with this now. I must stop it. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? He wondered. And then he got an idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful, awful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. He made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and chuckled. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat, this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeers are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop that Grinch? Oh no, that old Grinch, no indeed. No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the head of Max. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks and on a ramsack sled, and he hitched up Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sled started down toward the homes of Whoville. Lay a snow and the snows, and there are beds in the town of Whoville. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreamy, sweet dreams without a care. When he came to the first little house on the square, the stop number one, the old Grinchy Claus hissed. And he climbed to the roof, emptied his bag in his fists. Down, 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 and then he slid just down the chimney. A rather tight pinch, but Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Whose stockings all hung in a neat little row. Their stockings, he grinned, and at first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates and drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. He stuffed them in the bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who's pudding. He put the roast beef. He took that too. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with a gleam. And now, grinned the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree too. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small, like the coo of a dove. He turned around and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by his tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought of a lie and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little toot, the fake Santa Claus said, with a lie, there's a light. There's a light on the tree that won't light one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop. My dear, I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back. I'll bring it right back here. And he flip-flopped the child and patted her, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Sidney Lou, who went to bed with her cup, he went up to the chimney and stuffed the tree up the chimney. Then the last thing he took was a log of the fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks, some wire, and one speck of food. That he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Just then, he did the same thing to the other Who houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouse also. Yes, not even a crumb big enough for a mouse. It was 15:15 dawn and all Who still in bed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, their tags, and their tied tents, the trimmings, the trappings. Yes, he had taken it all, leaving nothing. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh, pooh, to the Who's. He was grinching humbly. They'll find now what Christmas is all about. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I must simply hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started low, then it started to grow. The sound was low, but then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very merry. He started and stared down at Whoville. The Grinch's eyes almost popped out. Then he shook. What? He was in shock and surprise only the Grinch could not understand. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came. It just came the same. The Grinch couldn't believe it. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he was puzzled 3 hours till his puzzling was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means just a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel so quite tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back all the toys and the food for the feast, and he had taken, and now he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. The Grinch, who tried to steal Christmas, now is enjoying Christmas, eating the feast with all the other Who's in Whoville.